Excuse me.
I think we all did.
To the short stories.
I've been requested to tell a tale. Because of last night's storm and it cooled off, and even though you hardcores were out making s'mores one day and roasting marshmallows,
Take the photo sticks down.
I have a tale.
Thank you.
It happened in 1996 when I was invited by National Geographic to excavate some dinosaurs in Patagonia. And so one of the people that instigated me going was Dr. Phil Curry at the Royal Perel Museum. Now, the host scientist down there in Patagonia that was working on Argentinosaurus and Giganotosaurus, his name was Rodolfo Corey. Now, Rodolfo had spent the previous summer up in Alberta, Canada, where he was introduced to all kinds of Canadian delicacies. Yes, into the spam and ketchup and white bread sandwich, which Rodolfo didn't care for. But he was also introduced to roasting marshmallows over a campfire. And so Philip called me like 4 days before I'm to leave, and he says, "Nate, you got to take some marshmallows or you got to go." So I'm worried about important stuff, and he's asking me to bring bags of marshmallows. And I assumed that they had marshmallows in Patagonia, and they do not. So I bought 4 nice bags of giant marshmallows, and I crammed them into my luggage, my duffel bags, and I flew off to Buenos Aires. That was my first stop. And I had to go through customs. And so, can you imagine, at the time, it was a military government. So everybody was walking around with machine guns and army uniforms. And that includes customs. So here I am. I've got my luggage going through customs. And these soldiers, they open my bag up and they see these big, fluffy, white things. And they're thinking, "Oh, we have you now, Americano." And so they're stopping me and they're pulling out their bags, marshmallows, shaking them like "You're busted, dude." And so one of them, who is a very cool commander, he pushes his finger through the bag and rubs it across the marshmallow, and then he goes, like this. And then they start arguing in Spanish, this hybrid Spanish of Portuguese and yes, thank you. Anyhow, it was quite a scene, and I imagining crevice searches and, all of this. They called me, they put me into a room with these 4 bags spread out on the table, and they start talking among themselves because they couldn't communicate in English, even though this is an international airport. So finally, a guy with more stripes on his shoulders and medals on his chest, he walks in, he looks at these bags of marshmallows, and he starts slapping them like the Three Stooges. And they're all. And then he turns and he apologizes to me. He says, "Sorry, senor. I was educated in the United States, and I know what marshmallows are." So I got released from customs. I made it to Buenos Aires because it's like 50 miles away from the airport. And then I took another plane to Neuquén province, where Argentinosaurus and Giganotosaurus was located. We proceeded to go ahead and go shopping and provision up for the excavation. And we went ahead, we started excavating the site and trying to understand how this body had fallen apart. And it took a lot of work, but we did. I told you the story about El Dente and all. Well, that was early on, as it was like 14 days into the expedition, and we had uncovered a lot of the animal. Now, I told you about how communal it was, and they shared everything. So I had an opportunity to go into a village and buy several cases, 1-liter bottles of Heineken. And they sold it for 59 cents a liter. Heineken, put it together. Argentina, German beer, very cheap. Okay, well, that's exactly what was going on. So here I had these 3 cases of Heineken, and we had dinner, and then we sat down after 14 days being out in the field. Now, the team, they were all Argentine, and they have partial beards and 5 o'clock shadows with no showers. Okay, it was dirty work, no power tools. These guys were slinging picks, and they had chisels made out of
Correspondence?
no, Mark. What they put in reinforcement on concrete?
Oh, rebar.
Rebar. And they ground off the rebar, and they would just use those as chisels. Very primitive. And they were working asses off to take over 14 feet of overburden off this dinosaur. Well, at the end of the day, I saw how hard they were working when I bought this Heineken. And Rodolfo had the 4 bags of marshmallows. So if you can picture in your mind's eye, about to the counter, the wall, and that wall behind me, there was a huge fire ring. And all the team members were sitting around it, and they had this 5 o'clock shadow that was dirty, dark, and their eyes were as black as nothing, staring at the flames in the fire. And so my friend Rodolfo, we started popping open bottles. And they wanted to do it one at a time and share them. And I was, no, I'm not having any of that. And I was passing out liter bottles of vitamin. And they were all drinking and having a great time. And then I'm sitting next to Rodolfo, and he flips his knapsack open, and I can see the first bag of marshmallows. Now, he's sitting there, he's got this big, I mean, there are 20 men around this fire. And Rodolfo pulls up this stick and goes to the sky like it's Excalibur. Okay? And he's, and the guys are going, all big black eyes in the darkness. And then Rodolfo, he reaches down and he's made a hole in the bag and he grabs a marshmallow and they go, oh, like that. And he's showing his stick with the marshmallow. And they're just transfixed on this marshmallow stick. And I'm watching this going, oh, this is good. and then he goes, and he turns the stick towards the marshmallow and slowly brings it together. And he pierces the marshmallow. And they can see that it's soft and malleable. And then he holds it up into the air. And they go, I mean, it's kind of like a crowd going, okay? Then, what happens after that is he takes it and he lowers it into the fire. And they're just watching. And they see that it catches fire. And he brings it up into the night sky, and it's just this fireball. And they're going, oh, ah, oh. And he turns the stick towards his mouth, watching, then blows it out. And it's this black blob on his stick. And then he looks around at him and he goes, pulls it off the stick. And they're going, they're just terrified. They're terrified. And then as he chews on it, he looks like some kind of chef tasting something that is just absolutely wonderful. Okay? And they're all terrified of what's going to happen to their comrade. And he looks at it, and then he goes, oh, like this. And then he takes another one and puts it on, puts it in the fire, and he gets this one golden. And they're all watching, and they just are amazed at the fact that he's doing these rubber things. And then he says, amigos, like that. And all of a sudden they're up from sitting in a cross-legged position and they disappear in the darkness. They're gone. It's just Rodolfo and I. And within a minute, they appear out of the darkness around the fire with their own sticks. And they start eating all of these marshmallows and spitting them around at night and burning them to crisp and enjoying the hell out of them. And they ate 4 bags and polished off all of that hind. So that's my marshmallow story of Argentina in 1996, where these men actually got to walk on the moon.